What is up, guys? So just a little quick update from CES. I'm a little sick, so if you hear me cough or something, I apologize in advance. I still wanted to keep going and talk about the 1DX Mark III and now the C200. I feel like this is gonna be a conversation that's gonna be going on for a while. So I've owned the C200 now for over a year. I've used it, it's been literally my main camera, but now we have a new kid on the block, the 1DX Mark III, which I think is gonna be an amazing camera. And a lot of people are now comparing. There's even people on Twitter saying, should I sell my C200 and get a 1DX Mark III? So hopefully I can answer a lot of these questions today and kind of give you my perspective on the subject matter of owning a C200 and possibly even buying a 1DX Mark III. So I have a couple of notes here that I just wanna look through, mainly because I don't wanna forget, and there's a lot to talk about. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, grab a soda, whatever it is that you like, and let's talk about some cameras. So let's go ahead and talk about what are the similarities between both of these cameras. So both of these right now, as of filming this video, you can buy a C200, and this is the full package with the EVF and monitor for $6,500, and that's exactly the same price as the 1DX Mark III. So both of these are priced equivalent. Both have the benefits of Canon's dual pixel autofocus. Whoa. Okay, we're not cutting that. Both have the benefits of Canon's dual pixel autofocus, Canon's color science, the things that people like about Canon cameras. So both of them pretty much on board. They both do not have in-body image stabilization. So there's no form of IBIS. And that's something that kind of a bummer on the 1DX Mark III because it is a hybrid camera. It's expected on a cinema camera not to have it. However, the C500 does have it. It has an electronic stabilization similar to the USR, but if that's something that's important to you, just keep that in mind, but neither of them have it, so it doesn't really matter. Both of them shoot RAW. They both have the capability of shooting 12-bit RAW. Again, the 1DX Mark III does it at a higher resolution. We'll talk about that later, but both are capable of shooting RAW. Both of them are offered in an EF mount option. You can get the C200 in a PL mount, but again, we'll talk about that later, but both of them are offered in EF. There's no RF mount option on either of them, which is kind of a bummer. Both of them shoot pretty much the same in terms of like high frame rate. So both of them shoot 60 frames per second in 4K, and you can also do 120 frames per second in 1080p. Now let's talk about what makes these cameras different. So first of all, the 1DX Mark III, it is a full frame camera, and that is a big deal to a lot of people, including myself. I love the full frame look. Not to say Super 35 looks terrible, but there's just something about that shallower depth of field, the bokeh that you can get. Also, this is kind of a big one. If you use a 50mm lens, you're getting a 50mm focal length. Especially like, for example, in a room like this, it can matter because I may need that additional extra space. So full frame, you also have the option on the 1DX Mark III to also crop it into the sensor. So essentially you have a full frame camera, but also you can shoot in Super 35, which is amazing because now you can extend the focal range of your lens, which is awesome. That's something that I've been missing on the Sony system. Like when I used to shoot Sony, I used to love being able to shoot full frame and Super 35, being able to switch it up. And also, this is kind of a big one, you're getting a downsampled 5.5K image on the 1DX Mark III. So you're getting a much higher resolution. The 4K is just gonna look much sharper than it would on the C200. So just kind of keep that in mind. Definitely a plus. So the 1DX Mark III, as I said, it does shoot in RAW, but it also shoots in 5.5K. So you're gonna get a much higher resolution, which means you'll be able to punch in, reframe, and you can do fake slider shots. You can do a lot of other things that you normally couldn't do. And that's of course if you're working in a 4K timeline. And it's actually something that I like to do. A lot of times you guys may not notice this, but I do a lot of these like fake sliding shots or even fake movement shots because I have that extra resolution. And having 5.5K is quite a bit, especially if we're outputting in 4K. So that is a welcome upgrade that the 1DX Mark III has over the C200. Now, I love the fact that the 1DX Mark III is kind of future-proof in the sense that it's using CFast Express. Now, that does come at a cost. It is expensive, but I feel that that is the future. It has crazy amount of data transfer speeds that you can do. It's also in the form factor of an XQD card. It's rugged, it's beefier than like SD cards. It's just the future, and it's future-proof. And truth be told is when we get the C500 and it has CFast Express, I only have to carry one type of media. So that is great. I mean, for somebody who's gonna be using modern cameras, that as opposed to using, older, I really shouldn't say older, but older than CFast Express with these traditional, CFast card and SD cards in the back. Now, this has always bothered me about the C200 that the 1DX Mark III is able to do, and that is shoot 10-bit 422. I still, to this day, do not understand why you can't do it on the C200. I get it, Canon has told me, because I've emailed them and I've talked to reps, and the same stupid story is always the one they tell me about the processor just can't do it. Fine, I get it. Well, can we just do it externally? They still block that. I don't understand why Canon blocks it. Hopefully, Canon, if you're watching this, can you just unlock the external part of it? I don't care if you do an internal, but unlock the external. But you could do it on the 1DX Mark III. That is awesome. You can shoot 10-bit 422 internally and also externally, which is awesome. And there's just a plethora of shooting modes. Like I said, you can do Super 35 mode. You can also have different types of configurations. Like you can do RAW 10-bit, you can do 5.5K, 4K, just a ton of shooting modes, as opposed to the C200, which literally just has the high end of 12-bit RAW and then the low end of 8-bit. Now let's talk about where the C200 shines over the 1DX Mark III. So this is a cinema camera, and it has cinema features, and it has a ton of different things that are geared for video people. So for example, all of the different controls and buttons and configurations are really geared towards shooting video. For example, if I want to white balance, if I don't want to shoot RAW, I can easily, I mean, there's a dedicated white balance button. I just look at the card, boom, push a button, and it's white balance. There's also audio controls, which we'll talk more about later, but I can adjust the audio controls here. Manually, I can push buttons without me having to really dive into a menu system that just, it can take a while. If I'm shooting something, let's say I'm doing a documentary, shooting a wedding, doesn't really matter. I can just get through things really quickly because it's dedicated for video, which is great. Also, you can rig it out for video. Not to say you can't rig a 1DX Mark III, but there's just more options. For example, they sell a battery plate for a V-mount that's dedicated for a camera like this. You can't really do that with the 1DX Mark III. You would have to get like a dummy battery and really shoehorn things to make it fit, as opposed to something like this where things are really dedicated, as I mentioned, for video. So that's something that I really like. You're also gonna get better video options. So even though the 1DX Mark III has amazing video capabilities, this just gives you the upper edge in terms of quality. For example, like C-Log. You only get the standard C-Log on the 1DX Mark III, but on the C200, you get C-Log, you get C-Log 2, C-Log 3, which are just gonna give you or offer really more dynamic range. You're gonna be able to push it more in terms of like the color grade. So you're gonna really dial it in and just, I hate to use this word, but just give you more a cinematic look or filmic look. We'll leave it at filmic. The other thing I like about it is that there's no record limit on the C200. Unlike the 1DX Mark III, if you are shooting internal or if you're recording internal, there is a 30-minute record limit. You can circumvent that, as I mentioned in my video that I did for CES. If you use a recorder, you can bypass it, but that's just another thing that you have to buy and another thing that you have to add to the camera. So I do like that. There's also other video features, like for example, you can set this to a 180-degree shutter rule. So if you change your frame rate, it automatically changes it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I'm so used to that even at CES this happened. I was shooting with the USR and I completely forgot to change my shutter speed. Oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. I'm telling you right now, we're shooting at 60 frames per second and I was still at 50 shutter speed and the footage looked really choppy. I had to do some. Anyway, yeah, it happens, but that's because I'm so used to shooting with this that I don't have to worry about. And those are the little things that I truly appreciate having on this. Now, there's one last thing that I feel the C200 has that edges the 1DX Mark III, and this is actually on the top of my list. They both have dual pixel autofocus, but the C200 has a special setting for dual pixel autofocus that I've yet to see any other Canon camera have, including the C300. C300 doesn't even have this. I believe the C500 does have this, and I don't have it with me, but I'm gonna double check. And that's being able to track face only. I've talked about this on my review. If you guys have not watched my 6-month review, take a look at it, but I specifically talk about how, for example, if I were to leave the frame right now, if I were to get up and leave, the camera will automatically focus to the back. Like traditional cameras do this all the time, but with the C200, it remembers my face. And if I get up, it will automatically turn off autofocus and it'll remember where my face was at last. I love this feature, and I love this especially because when you're doing interviews, if let's just say somebody, I don't know, just kind of does this, or they turn their head and it loses the autofocus, that will never happen with the C200. It will never happen. That is a killer feature if you're using, of course, autofocus. For me, it's awesome. Also, there are interchangeable mounts. So for example, you can get this in a PL mount. We talked about this. You get it standard. This is something that you can technically do yourself, but this is also something that you would possibly need to get an adapter if you wanted to do it with the 1DX Mark III. Not like a huge advantage, but I feel that, you know, there is slight an advantage on the C200. Here's another big one, and this is another reason why I picked the C200. It's the built-in ND filters. If you've been watching Potato Jet's video, he's having a blast with the C500. I can't believe he's vlogging with it, but he talks about that. He talks about how he loves having built-in ND filters. I don't know if I can ever give that up. As somebody who shoots video, it just comes in clutch every single time. Yes, you can buy an ND filter and you can buy a variable ND filter, but just having it built into the body, being able to grab one lens and then slap another one on here, and having this built into the body is just, for me, why I would pay the extra money to have something like this. Also, the other video-centric features like built-in XLR audio. So for example, if you wanted to have similar audio like this on the 1DX Mark III, you would have to buy something like a Mix Pre 3. I would say that that would be like the equivalent of the C200. Like the C200 has really good preamps, like really, really good preamps. I highly doubt, because the 1DX Mark II didn't, I highly doubt the preamps on the 1DX Mark III are gonna be that great. It'll be decent, you can get by with it, you can shoot with it, but it won't sound as good as a C200, and you get two of them. So that's just another added cost if you wanted to get really high quality audio. If you went down the 1DX Mark III, you would have to spend, where this is all integrated into the body. Now, something else is all of the different ports that you get. SDI, full-size HDMI. As I mentioned, just having all of the different controls integrated into the body, it's just fantastic. I can't tell you how many times I love using this camera a lot. Again, that's one of the reasons why I bought a C500, is because it's like the bigger brother of the C200. The other thing that I want to talk about is the articulating display. I mean, this thing is, I don't have to tell you, an articulating display is just fantastic. Like, I have a 50mm on here, and if I was filming something, even myself, I can just flip this over and I can compose a shot. I can do it on a side angle. I can do a top angle. Just articulating display, touch display. You don't get that with the 1DX Mark III. It is a touch display, but you don't get the articulating features, which means you have to, or you don't have to, but you almost feel forced to buy a display or a monitor in order to be able to see yourself if you do want. And it's not even so much about vlogging. It's just, like I said, I can be shooting something this angle, and just being able to do that is useful. So I love that about the C200. And those are things you gotta think about if you're really considering the 1DX Mark III. And then lastly, I gotta say the EVF. It saved me so many times when I'm shooting outside. Yes, monitors are great. You can even buy one with like 2000 nits, but an EVF, you can't really replace a really high quality EVF like this. And really what you see is what you get. So it could be 110, daylight bright, it's just super bright. Look in here, I'll be able to see what's going on. And that's something that I think is crucial in having when you're shooting video. There's one last thing, I know I said that was the last thing, but there's really one last thing, and that's the X factor. I got a little quick story to tell you about this, but the X factor of this being a cinema camera. If you're doing professional work, there's like a stigma if you show up with your little puny mirrorless camera, as opposed to, all right, slap a little matte box and let's go, you know? We talked about this in building the $20,000 cinema rig with Potato Jet. I'll leave a link down below, but that's exactly what we said. When you rig a camera out like this and you show up on set, or if you show up on, you know, somebody's wedding or a professional shoot, it's just gonna look balls out, like, whoa, this guy means business. And I'm gonna tell you, the little story is, just really quickly, I went on a shoot. This was many years ago, like 10 years ago. I went on a shoot. This was when the not mirrorless, the DSLR market was just starting to get, you know, pick up and stuff. And I talked to the guy and I said, why don't you use like a Canon 5D Mark II for your production? He was using like those old tape cams and stuff. He goes, let me tell you something. He goes, if I showed up right now, because they were shooting something for a dealership, because if I showed up right now with one of those cameras, because I had it, He goes, they wouldn't pay me $50,000 to do this shoot right now. And I was like, makes sense. So yeah, size does matter.
That's what she said.
Anyway, moving on to my final conclusion, and I know this is kind of like a crazy, like, what camera should I get? I probably messed you up even more. It's really hard.
That's what she said.
I mean, it just really depends on what you're going to shoot. I mean, we're all different. Like, my needs are different than yours, and Mike's back there, and Jenny, and Leo in the back over there. We all have different needs. But I'll tell you one thing right now. If I was a one-man shooter, I can only afford one of these two cameras, the C200 or 1DX Mark III. I gotta say, I would go with the C200 still. Mainly because it's so much easier to use for one person. I feel the 1DX Mark III would actually slow me down. Also, the 1DX Mark III, and if you guys did not watch that video, just because I don't want to make this video longer, it's already pretty long, watch the CS. There's 3 things that nobody's really talking about. So go ahead and watch that, but it's just things that I think are gonna hinder me as a creator or filmmaker that I just think, I don't know, I would rather have the C200. Also, like I mentioned, this is a video camera. This is dedicated for video. I don't think, as great as the 1DX Mark III is in terms of video features, I don't think that is the video camera that people technically should be buying. I think it's gonna be a great B camera for the C500, but I don't think it should be a dedicated video camera because in all honesty, that's not what Canon intended it for. I'd almost argue that you should wait for like the EOS R Pro version. I feel that's gonna be more geared towards video creators because that will have IBIS and other features that are gonna be meant, or at least more for video, like better C-Log and stuff like that. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Which one would you buy, C200, 1DX Mark III? Honestly think that they are both great cameras. You really can't go wrong with either one. It just really depends on what your needs are. But anyway, just wanted to make this video. Again, I don't feel too well, but I wanted to put something out there and just have a conversation with you guys. But in any case, thanks again for watching. You guys will catch me in the next one. Adios.